Chapter 7. 1. Acetra couldn't stomach any literature. She felt an illness in her chest, a deep resentment. The apple had nearly killed Bex. The first time he took a bite, and here he was looking for more. I don't care what the apple gave him, she muttered to herself. It's taken from him so much more. It's taken him from me, from Zalfa, from the whole university. She left him because of something she read which really hit home. Addiction is like a tar pit. If you wade too deep, it will consume you. Others can throw you a rope to pull you to safety, but you have to be willing to be helped. Otherwise, you'll end up pulling them in. And then they have no choice but to let go of the rope, lest they become consumed themselves. Acetra shed a tear, and she let go too soon. 2. Catastrophic failure detected. Model 2, Gen 8 again. E-Delta relayed to Norton Pierce. What did the senior engineer tell you? He ran the chemical profile dated minutes before the failure. Toxicity screening shows a metal similar in structure to iron coursing through Bex's bloodstream. It affects the implants in a similar fashion as lead in biological organisms. Systems. It's a miracle that Bex survived. Permission to investigate Model 2 Gen 8 further. Permission granted. Norton Pierce affirmed. Rendezvous with Delta, who has already questioned Mr. Hero, this Zalfa character in Sector A, and E-Delta. Don't screw this up. Yes, sir. E-Delta didn't let his excitement show. He promptly stood up and left the forensics building. Prime the machine. Norton spoke to a charge hand. We're going to full power. On my mark. The machine hummed a steady C sharp. And mark. 3. Sam went to the yes indicator in the terrarium. Then I'd better warn Bex, Zalfa determined. He pushed the indent in his arm. Model 2, Generation 8, he spoke into his implant. Nothing but static. Damn it. He bit the apple again. His implant is offline. He checked the time. 7:06 p.m. I guess I'd better hit the pipe. Zalfa left Sam behind and locked the door. The mouse had told him yes when he asked if the detective knew about this implant malfunction and if it was traceable through the network. This was no maybe. Zalfa knew the answer before the question was asked. It just needed a jolt out of hiding from his subconscious mind. Random stimuli producing an aha moment. Thanks, Sam. 4. Visions of perfection calmed and excited the host. Blue skies with hints of small, puffy white clouds, purple eyes watching, non-judgmental, feeling a divine nirvana in the air. The host's olfactory senses detected a perfume so remarkable that it shook the host to the core. A tingling sensation filled the host with a sense of gratification so powerful, the host began to collapse. into a state of delusion. 5. Do not shut it down, Norton Pierce screamed at the charge hand. Full power! We must push forward! The charge hands knew it could mean their lives if they disobeyed a direct order. Norton had built the machine containing the host, making him the nucleus of the very law itself. Nobody had ever matched the level of energy, clean energy, that Norton, a man of natural world origins, could. Except his machine was dangerous. 21st century atom bombs looked like toy guns by comparison. If his machine failed, it could alter the fabric of reality itself, the universe potentially collapsing in on itself to produce another Big Bang with an infinite amount of changes to physics, gravity, chemistry, and other universal laws. Matter could cease to exist altogether. Obey Norton. Everything will be fine. Disobey an order. Face execution. It was for the best this way, and they had to make it rational, if only to prevent catastrophe. Many faithful workers developed PTSD in this work environment, but those who thrived felt a proud camaraderie for the meta-organism with Norton Pierce himself. Very few qualified for entry into the machine room, and fewer still were permitted proximity to the machine. The host is gaining consciousness. Push, I said, Norton Pierce barked. The machine hummed a steady C sharp. 6. Bex flipped through the pages, the black book, absorbing the text, searching for answers to questions he had about medicine. He learned about DNA and evolution. He learned about viruses and climate change. The book seemed to read him. It became pleasing to hold in his hands. And then he read a passage that wasn't like the others. I can get her back. I can get her back. Bex. Signed, S. He stared at the page, paralyzed. Who was S? Who was S? I don't remember your name, he said aloud. The monitor indicated someone at the door. Is that Zalfa? Bex voiced his thoughts. He seems more archaic. Bex opened the door. 7. Acetra headed to the eugenics department. She had to understand more about the apples, and Hubris 89X would have to let her know more. She went on foot, avoiding the pipe. The environment leading to the ED seemed to grow more and more sterile. She noticed what appeared to be candles, pilot lights, cleaning the air of pathogens. As she drew nearer, the hairs on the back of Acetra's neck rose. She turned around, nothing except... Hello, she yelled out. I must be imagining things, she concluded after a moment, and proceeded to follow the pathway to the entrance of the eugenics department. Hello there. Is your name etc.? Hubris and 89X are expecting you. The receptionist greeted etc. Come with me, please. They're expecting me? etc. asked awkwardly. Of course, the receptionist warmly smiled at her. They went into a hallway and followed a green line on the floor, eventually making their way to an indoor apple nursery. Etc. squinted under the fluorescent light. This way, the receptionist beckoned, leading her towards the domicile of Hubris 89X. It was decorated with images of plant and animal cells, with a focus on mitochondria. There was a poster on the wall of the periodic table of elements. Next to it, on a creative decal, were the letters Fe, the chemical abbreviation for iron. Welcome, etc. 89X translated for Hubris. Would you like a tour? Maybe another time. I have some questions about Bex. Hubris 89X was silent for a second. Then, understood. Echo, some privacy, please. Thank you. The receptionist left politely. What do you want to learn about Bex? I need to know if he can overcome the pull of the apple. The apple. Etc. said gravely. The apple, yes, its addictive nature. 89X translated. Vitamin D will help with withdrawal, but I'm afraid the only way to cure him is with a retrovirus. Hubris 89X went on. There is no such cure, as science has not required one yet. They finished. Can you make one? Etc. asked. It will take some time. 8. Jyota watched the blue-eyed girl leave the ED, hiding in the shadows, afraid she might get discovered. High levels of anxiety plagued her, a result of Gen 9's enlarged amygdala in the center of their limbic systems. Tecentra was to be held accountable for losing a clone, but Jyota didn't know this. Jyota was created with fight or flight reflexes optimized to excess, and she wasn't fitted with an implant yet, which made stealth all too easy. She followed the blue-eyed girl, intuiting a way out of her prison, the ED. The girl walked distractedly towards her destination, Jyota hot on her heels. The blue-eyed girl dressed differently than the teachers in the ED. Jyota found the clothing whimsical by comparison. Chapter 8. 1. Bex tucked the black book away in his dresser drawer, then opened the door for Zalpha. Bex, you need to know something. You are being tracked right now. Your implant can't handle the apple's effects. We need to address this problem. We, as in Schizoid Cult Corporation, lest our methods be exposed to the competition. Our advantage is best kept secret. The mind trap isn't something I alone possess. The fact is, any clone of the Trinity Matrix can do so, or so I suspect, he said with an air of urgency. I think I can withstand the pull, at least until we can find a way to keep my implant online. That should be our primary goal. To do this, we need to go to Hubris 89X. Wow, am I glad you spared her. Maybe revenge isn't always the answer. Beck sighed relief. Not always, Bex. Very well. Let's consult with the third member, etc. Zalfa explained. We need to be united in this. Otherwise we'll need a third. Then his eyes lit up. Bex, was it the same this time around? When you took a bite? I mean, let me repair your implant. He set to work with the repair function of his own implant. Beck seemed hesitant, but reluctantly confessed. I managed to open the portal on my own somehow. The problem is, it closed behind me and another, I was sent back by this fellow whose name I can't remember. S. something. Zalfa listened intently. He handed me this book, and ever since then, well, let's just say I won't need to eat another apple for a long time. Really? A book? Zalfa questioned. They have books in the fourth dimension. Something wasn't right here. May I see the book? Bex went for the drawer. He stashed the book in. He pulled it out and reluctantly handed it to Zalfa. Be careful with it, he said to him. Zalfa flipped through the pages, his eyes growing brighter as he read. This is some advanced medicine. The list of vaccines is much larger than the healthcare meta-organisms. There are cures to diseases I've never even heard of. Zalfa was humbled by this wealth of information, and then he found a page that filled him with horror. Bex, we can't let this book go public. There on the page was an inscription describing in great detail how to enter the mind trap. Somehow, there's more to the mind trap than I had previously been aware. Level 1, the impulse trap. Level 2, the mind trap. And level 3, the God trap. Users beware. Each of these gifts can go awry if you let them. It is best to ground yourself in level 1 before proceeding to level 2, then level 3. Never go straight into level 3. The results would be catastrophic. By starting at level 1, one discards the need for a spotter to pull out of level 2. Nobody has come out of level 3 without a spotter, however, and the risk of permanency grows with the duration of time spent in each state of mind. Level 1. Split-second consecutive decisions, reacting by way of instinct rather than thought. With practice, single words can mean much, much more in an instant. The color red could be associated with an emotional state, a flavor or scent, a point on a political spectrum, a piece of music. The possibilities are only as finite as the user of the impulse trap's imagination. Stimuli is abbreviated to the point of accelerated consumption, a conversation with the environment who is all too eager to provide answers. The user begins predicting the future outcomes, and the reactions begin to take on rhythm as the user chooses what happens next. Level 2. The user dissociates from reality to the point where the body continues reacting to base level environmental factors such as navigating obstacles and consuming food and water. As the user is detached from the real, random stimuli provides knowledge from the pool of the subconscious mind which can be recalled when the user engages reality again. Don't lose tempo here, or you might not make it back to the real. Level 3. Reality becomes a pencil in the user's hand. This mode of the cognitive traps is the hardest to achieve. One must seek out the author of this book in order to learn how to use the God Trap. Only those brave enough to find me will be granted this knowledge. There's only one other who possesses the ability to enter the God Trap. I tried to warn them of the repercussions, yet they did not listen. Zalfa, are you ready to find me? Signed, S. The book knows my name, somehow, Zalfa exclaimed. Mine too, Beck said. Let's find a Cetra. 2. Jyota missed her mother, Cetra. She didn't like the ED, but a longing for home came over her. There were many people here on the outside, all of them indifferent to her and very busy. The world outside seemed cold, yet the blue-eyed girl didn't seem to mind. Jyota had to learn how this was possible, so she continued following the girl. Zect, Sector, C, she said quietly to herself, reading a sign. The ability to read was a learned behavior in the natural world. Here, however, it was literally an instinct. Some rewiring of synapses replaced unnecessary baby instincts like suckling a breast with adult-level reading and walking. The ED knew it had something to do with the divine tongue, and each of the generations of clones became better optimized for such adaptations as time progressed. Not bad for less than a decade's hands-on research. Jyota continued following until the blue-eyed girl entered a dorm. She tried the knob. Locked. This was unacceptable. Jyota had a fit and began slamming her fists against the door. 3. Cetra had only just stepped in when she heard the ruckus at her door. She wasn't expecting anyone. She checked the monitor and saw somebody distressed behind the door, a woman. She noticed something strange about this woman, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. She opened the door. 4. It's a disaster. She's gone, Cetra relayed to the senior engineer. With no implant, we can't track her down, and she could be anywhere. Beta collected himself. The forensics department had been here to investigate a problem with an existing implant and had unwittingly provided a distraction for Jyota to escape. We'll need a scent sample. Rufus 45A will be able to track the Gen 9 clone down, but we need to move quickly. The engineer and the language specialist headed towards the culinary department. Dogs were all naturally talented at turning meals into works of art. The smells they mixed and matched together left the best human chefs at a loss for words. Canines naturally flocked towards the kitchen now that their sentient counterparts provided the freedoms associated with the title of individual. Rufus 45A will provide us with the means to track down an existing smell, his nose. The hunt for the missing clone continued. 5. Hubris had a dilemma. Before she could begin work on the retrovirus, she had to obtain a blood sample from Bex. This might not be easy now that she had synthesized the apple and provided him with his hapless addiction. She needed to see his DNA at a macro level. She had to sort through his genome. It may not be so easy to do so. 89X mused aloud. Mammalian biology may have been Hubris's major, but microbiology was only her minor. That and Bex was no longer considered a mammal entirely. She needed that blood sample. Zalfa, I need to speak with you and Bex in person. The pair sent by implant. It's too important to relay over the air. 6. Bex couldn't stop shaking. Despite what he said, he couldn't stop thinking about the apple. One last time, he thought to himself. Just one last time. You feeling all right, Bex? Zalfa noticed he was starting to sweat. Yeah, I'm fine, Bex replied. The two of them went to Acetra's dorm by means of the pipe. Then afterwards, they were to head to the eugenics lab to speak with Hubris 89X about some sort of request that was much too important to relay over the implant network. Ding! The two arrived at Sector C. They stepped off of the pipe and went to Dorm A. The door was wide open. Hello, etc. Zalfa said out loud. Nothing except gurgling. They went into her bedroom to find a body lying on the floor. Etc. Beck screamed, running over to her. She was barely breathing. There was a pen in one of her eye sockets, and her body was plagued with multiple stab wounds that seemed to match the instrument sticking out of her head. Hubris and 89X have experience as a surgeon. We have to get her to the ED now, Bex frantically told Zalfa. The pipe wouldn't do. Not this time. Zalfa called for a hover cab from the eugenics department's emergency line. Bex began containing the legions with the first aid kit Acetra kept on top of her fridge, stopping the blood. The black book gave him the answers he needed before he needed them. If only I had the book here. Why did I leave it in my dorm? Then he remembered something he had read. I can get her back, Bex. Yes. Zalfa, make sure Acetra gets to the ED. Bex, what are you? And then the portal to the fourth dimension ripped open. Bex stepped through, and the portal closed behind him. Zalfa couldn't follow. The emergency vehicle arrived seconds later. The medical staff brought a stretcher out and carried Acetra inside the craft. Zalfa got in, and the hover cab departed for the eugenics department. 7. E-Delta and Z-Delta were 1 unit apart. They had been neighbors for all their career. They were created consecutively, yet they were bitter rivals. They, like the Gen 4 clones, were created for the purpose of justice. They were compared to one another all of Delta's life, and Delta, being 1 model ahead, was often referred to as the superior of the two. They hated one another because they were just too similar. Not in appearance, but function. I want first packs of this Bex guy, Delta barked at Delta. His implant consistently malfunctions these days, and the nucleus of forensics can't have that. We need to find out what exactly is going on here. He may be a victim, but there's something central going on around him. His eyes aren't like yours and mine. I think it might have something to do with the malfunction. Mind your tone of voice. I'm the senior officer here. I'll determine what happens with the investigation. I did notice his eyes, though. I'm going to grant your request, Delta responded. Delta nodded his head, stepped out of the vehicle. Sector H was still unpacking from the compression, yet here it was, Dorm B. He knocked on the door. No answer. Can we get a read on this guy's location? Check the implant locator. As Delta punched in a search query for the file on Bex. His last known location was here. His implant came back online about an hour later, and he started heading for Sector C. Then it disappeared again. Do you think he was tipped off? Who was here with him? Delta asked. Zalfa, the guy who resuscitated him. I've got his location. He appears to be leaving Sector C, Dorm A, in an emergency vehicle headed towards the eugenics department. We'll intercept them there. 8. The traveler returned to Satan's domains. Satan was pleased to see him again. Bex, old friend, what can I do for you? Did you like my book? The book said you can get her back. How? Bex asked him. Oh, blood sacrifice, an altar on which to pour the blood, and this is... Are you listening? This is the most important part. We need to wake up the host. He said in a casual, nonchalant manner. What's the host? Bex asked, to which Satan replied. This question can be answered in time, but now I'll have to tell you who the host was before they were the host. Come with me. Satan snapped his fingers. Then something began lifting out of the ground. The earth moved as gravity began pushing it away from what was buried here. Dust began to rise out of the object as it rose, and then finally the ground stopped shaking. The dust cleared, and there it was. A door. Satan turned the knob and the door opened. There was light behind it, bright light. Bex stepped through to discover a wondrous, lush foliage of plants. They spoke to him in a foreign tongue that he couldn't help but understand. He knew these plants like his own siblings. They felt akin to his new nature, not in a human way, but in this ethereal new chloroplast sensation of communication he found he understood. It was seemingly musical. They were content in the sun, absorbing its rays. The host created all this, Bex. What is this place? It's so sacred. What is this place? Bex had to know. This is what you would call a spot in the natural world. You've clearly never been here before. You have origins here as well as artificial. You've never left the university all your life. It's about time you saw with your own eyes. Animals without cybernetic counterparts roamed through the thicket, frolicking and jumping. Some animals were seen eating other ones instead of waiting for their food to be prepared. It was wondrous. A lamb wandered up to Bex. No parent in sight. Cute, isn't it? Satan chortled. Yes, it is. I've never seen an infant before. This lamb is young. Then I'm afraid it will have to do. This will be our blood sacrifice. Grab the animal and come with me. We're going to kill it. Why? It's part of the recipe. It's barbaric. Bex had a hard time getting over this, but he needed to get her back. Satan knew this, so he said nothing. Went back through the doorway, back into the darkness. Bex grabbed the lamb, followed Satan back. Hey, S. I'm gonna need a way back to the university. How do I get back from here without Zaltha and etc.? Satan fished in his cloak for something, then he pulled out a small hand mirror. He handed it to Bex. This will bring you back. After spilling the blood of this lamb on the altar you raise, you'll need to find a way to wake the host. All of a sudden, a portal ripped open and Zaltha stepped through. His eyes were filled with chloroplasts, indicating he had taken a bite out of the apple. We're losing her, Bax. She wants to see you one last time. Zaltha, nice to see you again. Satan smiled. I've never met you before now. You and I both know this. S. Zaltha replied. Try the impulse trap, Zaltha. Help Bex. Zaltha looked at Bex, who nodded. Zaltha began simplifying his mental language to short, quick commands. He assumed the id. The impulse to chop wood took him over. Bex pointed at the door and the two of them went through. When they went through, Zaltha took in the fresh air and his gaze fell upon some old milling equipment. He took an axe in hand and began cutting down trees to feed into a planer. Bex felt pain when he saw his plaid friends dying, but he knew this was part of the sacrifice he had to make. He grabbed an axe and followed suit. After the logs were put through the planer, Zaltha instinctively went for the saw and cut the planks of wood into more refined shapes. Bex took some screws and a hand drill and began putting the pieces together. Finally, they had raised the altar. An old shed they discovered nearby had produced some red candles, which they placed on the altar before lighting them. Bex pulled a knife from an old trunk in the shed. He knew what had to be done. Good work, you two. Zaltha fades into the mine trap. I'm sure you'll discover the next step in due time. Bex, you'll know what to do. Zaltha counted 6 candles. He had 2 moves. Bex needed 3. Zaltha watched as Bex raised the knife to the lamb's neck and slit the creature's throat open, spilling the blood on the altar they had built with literal sweat and blood. Bex's eyes shot wide open as the words came shooting into his mind. Hemispherectomy. Zaltha's next move was to stop Bex, but something came over him and he paused, seeing that look on Bex's face. Zaltha, for the first time, phased into the God trap. He noticed reality change with his thoughts. It was overwhelming to him at first. The trees began to melt. The sky caught fire and gravity gave way to weightlessness. He couldn't see Bex anymore, nor this S fellow, until he learned to function as a higher organism encompassing the environment, life, the fabric of reality itself. He took a deep breath and created an implant for both himself and Bex that wouldn't fail if the apple was consumed. It was then that he heard a voice. Tempo, Zaltha. Slowly reverted reality to the way it was before the experience. He phased back into the mind trap. He had run out of moves. Bex had one more. Phase back now, Zaltha. It was Bex's voice, bringing him back. He phased into the impulse trap momentarily before assuming the level of cognition typical to his peers. We're gonna get her back, Beck said. Follow me back to our dimension. Bex pulled out the pocket mirror, held it up to Zalfa's face, and then to his own. The fourth dimension shattered like glass to reveal the third. Hemispherectomy, Bex said to Hubris 89X. Bex and Hubris went to work on a Cetra.